The ground shook beneath Commander Sarah Chen's boots as another orbital bombardment struck the defensive line. Through the swirling dust and debris, she watched the last of humanity's invincible Titan-class battle tanks crumple like paper dolls under the Nexari's devastating energy weapons. The aliens had appeared 3 months ago, emerging from fold space with technology that made Earth's most advanced warships look like children's toys. Status report. Chen barked into her neural comm, fighting to keep her voice steady as she surveyed the carnage from her command bunker. The holographic displays showed a sea of red indicators where her forces had been systematically wiped out. Ma'am, 3rd Armored is gone. 7th Infantry is down to 20% combat effectiveness. The orbital defense grid. Lieutenant Morris's voice cracked. It's gone. They're landing troops in Sydney, New Delhi, and Lagos simultaneously. Chen slammed her fist against the tactical display, causing the hologram to flicker. 6 billion people relied on the combined Earth Defense Force to protect them, and they were failing spectacularly. The Nexari's crystalline warships had shrugged off humanity's most powerful weapons, like rain off a windshield. What about the prototype? Chen asked, her dark eyes fixed on a blinking blue icon representing humanity's last hope. Project Icarus is ready, Commander. Dr. Elena Rossi's accented voice cut in. But you should know, we haven't completed full testing. The neural interface cooled. We're out of options, Doctor. Chen interrupted. Conventional warfare is getting us slaughtered. How many volunteers do we have? 36, Rossi replied. All decorated Special Forces operators. But Commander, what you're proposing? Dropping troops from orbit in experimental-powered armor. It's never been done before. Chen watched another defensive line collapse under the Nexari assault. Their towering insectoid forms moved with terrifying speed and precision, their crystalline weapons cutting through armor and concrete alike. That's exactly why it might work, Chen said. The Nexari have counters for everything they've seen before. But this? She pulled up the schematics for Project Icarus. Sleek powered armor designed to survive atmospheric re-entry, equipped with experimental gravity manipulation tech and enough firepower to level a small city. Permission granted, came a grave voice. On Chen's display, the stern face of Admiral Wong appeared. God help us all. The next 48 hours were a blur of preparations. Chen watched as 36 of Earth's finest warriors were sealed into the experimental suits. The neural interfaces burned new pathways into their brains, turning the armor into extensions of their own bodies. Many screamed during the process. None gave up. Remember, Chen addressed the volunteers before deployment. You're not just soldiers anymore. You're the tip of the spear, humanity's answer to an enemy that thinks they've seen everything we can throw at them. She looked at each face in turn, memorizing them. In ancient times, armies would break at the sight of angels descending from heaven. Today, you're going to show the Nexari why. The drop pods were loaded into the last surviving orbital platform. Chen held her breath as the countdown began. This had to work. If it didn't, launch, she ordered. 36 streaks of fire lit up the sky over Sydney. The Nexari, experts in warfare after conquering 17 other species, had prepared for every contingency. Except this one. They had no defense against warriors who could survive re-entry, no counter for soldiers who could manipulate gravity itself. The first hot drop in human history lasted exactly 7 minutes and 13 seconds. When it was over, the Nexari's main force in Sydney lay in ruins. Their crystalline weapons shattered against armor designed to withstand the fires of atmospheric re-entry. Their formations broke under attacks from opponents who could move in 3 dimensions, switching from 0 gravity to 10 Gs in the blink of an eye. Status, Chen demanded, hardly daring to hope. 29 survivors, Commander, came the reply. Minimal injuries. The Nexari, they're in full retreat. They've never seen anything like this. Chen allowed herself a small smile as she watched the alien ships scrambling to escape Earth's orbit. Humanity had just changed the rules of warfare forever. The hot drops were born. In the days that followed, as more volunteers stepped forward and more suits were manufactured, Chen often thought back to those first 36. They had done more than turn the tide of a battle. They had given humanity something it desperately needed: hope. The Nexeri would return, of course, but they would return to a humanity that had learned to turn its greatest weakness. Return to face warriors who had mastered the art of turning the heavens themselves into a weapon. They would return to face the hot drops. Dr. Elena Rossi's fingers danced across the holographic interface, making minute adjustments to the Mark II hot drop armor's neural dampeners. The screams of the first generation of hot drop operators still haunted her dreams. She was determined to make the integration process less traumatic for the next wave. The bio readings are promising, her assistant, Dr. James Park, noted as he analyzed the data streaming from their latest test subject. Neural sync at 97% with minimal stress markers. The gravitational compensation systems are holding steady. Elena nodded, but her attention was fixed on the armored figure suspended in the testing chamber. Through the reinforced observation window, she watched as Captain Maya Patil executed a series of impossible maneuvers, the Mark I armor responding to her thoughts faster than natural muscles could fire. "Beautiful," Elena whispered. The armor moved like liquid metal, its advanced servomotors and artificial muscle fibers working in perfect harmony. When she had first proposed the concept of powered armor capable of surviving orbital drops, most of her colleagues had called her insane. Now, 3 months after the first successful hot drop deployment, she had hundreds of the world's best engineers working under her. "Dr. Rossi," Maya's voice came through the comm system, requesting permission to test the new gravity manipulation systems. "Proceed, Captain. Remember, the Mark U's grav drives are significantly more powerful than what you're used to. Start at 20% capacity." Elena held her breath as Maya activated the experimental technology. The Mark U's external plates began to glow with a subtle blue light as localized gravity fields formed around the armor. Maya rose from the ground, hanging suspended in midair for a moment before launching herself across the chamber at tremendous speed. "This is incredible." Maya's excited voice filled the lab. "The response time is instantaneous. I can change vectors faster than—" The captain's words cut off in a grunt of pain. Elena's heart jumped as she saw Maya clutch her head, the armor's movements becoming erratic. "Neural feedback spike," James shouted. "The sync is destabilizing. Emergency shutdown now." Elena's fingers flew across the controls, but Maya was already recovering, stabilizing her flight path. "I'm okay," the captain assured them, though her voice was strained. "Just got a bit excited and pushed too hard. The neural interface is more sensitive than I expected." Elena let out a relieved breath, but her mind was already racing through potential modifications. The Mark I's enhanced capabilities meant nothing if they couldn't be safely controlled. "That's enough testing for today," she decided. "Report to medical for a full scan, Captain." As Maya powered down the armor, Commander Chen's hologram materialized next to Elena's workstation. The commander's expression was grim. "Progress report, Doctor." "The Mark II is exceeding all performance metrics," Elena replied, pulling up the test data. "The enhanced gravity manipulation systems give our operators unprecedented mobility in combat scenarios." "But," she hesitated. "But the neural interface is still problematic. We've reduced the physical trauma, but the psychological demands are enormous. Even our best operators can only maintain peak performance for short periods before mental fatigue sets in." Chen's hologram nodded thoughtfully. "The Nexeri have begun adapting to our first-generation hot drops. Their new defensive systems are specifically designed to counter orbital insertion. We need every advantage we can get." "I understand, Commander, but we can't rush this. One wrong move with the neural interface, and we could burn out an operator's entire nervous system. These aren't just machines we're building. They're becoming extensions of the human body and mind." How long until the Mark II is combat ready? Elena studied the data scrolling across her screens. 2 weeks to resolve the neural feedback issues. Another week for final testing. But Commander, she met Chen's holographic gaze. We need to be selective about who we put in these suits. The psychological profile is everything. We need operators who can maintain absolute focus under extreme conditions. I trust your judgment, Doctor. You've already given humanity a fighting chance. Now make it a winning one. After Chen's hologram vanished, Elena turned back to the testing chamber where technicians were helping Maya out of the armor. The captain's face was pale and drawn, but her eyes were bright with excitement. The next generation of hot drops will be more than warriors, Elena mused aloud. They'll be pioneers, pushing the boundaries of what's possible when human consciousness merges with advanced technology. James looked up from his data analysis. You think the Nexari understand what they're really facing? It's not just the technology. It's our ability to adapt, to push ourselves beyond normal human limits. Elena smiled as she watched Maya already asking when she could test the armor again, despite the pain she had just experienced. That's what makes us different from them, James. The Nexari perfect their technology through iteration and analysis. We perfect ours through sheer determination and will. She turned back to her workstation, fingers moving across the interface with renewed purpose. The Mark I would be ready, and with it, humanity would take another step toward proving that sometimes the best response to superior technology was to completely change the rules of engagement. Captain Maya Patel stood in the cramped confines of her drop pod, the Mark I armor humming with power around her. Through the neural interface, she could feel every system, every weapon, as if they were extensions of her own body. 120 other hot drop operators waited in identical pods, scattered across 3 orbital platforms above the Nexari stronghold on Mars. Operation Thunderfall, the first full-scale hot drop offensive in human history. All units, final systems check. Commander Chen's voice echoed through the neural network, linking all hot drop operators. Maya felt the familiar presence of her squad members in the back of her mind, a side effect of the neural interfaces that Dr. Rossi hadn't anticipated. The Mark I suits didn't just connect pilot to machine. They created a subtle link between operators. Echo Squad, ready, Maya reported, feeling her team's acknowledgement ripple through the network. The familiar pre-drop tension coiled in her stomach, but the armor systems automatically adjusted, releasing calibrated doses of combat stimulants. This is it, people, Chen continued. The Nexari have fortified Mars with their most advanced defensive systems. They think they figured out how to counter hot drops. Today, we prove them wrong. Maya's tactical display lit up with mission data. The Nexari had transformed Olympus Mons into a fortress, using the ancient volcano's immense bulk to house their command center. Conventional forces had tried to breach it 3 times. Each attempt had ended in disaster. Launch in 30 seconds, Chen announced. Remember your training. Remember Earth. Remember what we're fighting for. Maya closed her eyes, letting the neural interface take over completely. The Mark II's enhanced systems merged with her consciousness until she couldn't tell where her body ended and the machine began. Around her, she felt her fellow operators doing the same, 120 warriors becoming something more than human. Launch. The drop pods erupted from their orbital platforms like artillery shells. Maya felt no fear as her pod hit the Martian atmosphere. The Mark II's gravitic systems automatically compensated for the brutal forces of re-entry, while its sensors pierced the plasma sheath to track incoming fire. Nexari defense grid activating. Someone reported through the neural net. Multiple energy signatures detected. The sky lit up with crystalline beams as the alien weapons targeted the falling pods. But the Nexari were fighting with outdated data. The Mark I suits were far more maneuverable than their predecessors. Break formation, Maya ordered her squad. Evasive pattern delta. Her pod jinked sideways, gravity drive screaming as she executed maneuvers that would have turned an unprotected human into paste. Around her, other hot drop operators did the same, their pods weaving an impossible dance through the lethal light show. They hit ground zero like a meteor shower. Maya's pod split open the instant before impact, allowing her to roll clear as enhanced servos absorbed the kinetic energy. Her tactical systems registered multiple hostile contacts before she had even come to a stop. Echo Squad, push for the primary entrance, she commanded, the Mark II's weapon systems coming online. Delta and Foxtrot, cover our flanks. The Nexari responded with mechanical precision, their crystalline battle forms emerging from hardened bunkers with weapons charge. But they had prepared for the first generation of hot drops. They weren't ready for what the Mark II could do. Maya activated her gravity drives at full power, the suit's exterior glowing with ethereal blue light. She launched herself straight up, hanging suspended for a split second before reversing the field. The Nexari tracked her movement perfectly, exactly as she had anticipated. Now, her squad materialized from multiple vectors, using their gravity drives to attack from impossible angles. The Mark II's enhanced neural interface allowed them to coordinate with inhuman precision, each operator instinctively knowing where their teammates would be. The Nexari's formation shattered. Their crystalline weapons, designed to track targets moving in predictable arcs, couldn't adapt to opponents who could change direction instantly, who could move in perfect synchronization through three-dimensional space. Maya's own weapons blazed, electromagnetic accelerators hurling projectiles at velocities that turned the air to plasma. Each shot was perfectly placed, guided by both the suit's targeting systems and her own trained instincts. Primary entrance secured, she reported, watching as more hot drop operators landed around her. Beginning Phase 2. The battle for Olympus Mons had begun. And as Maya led her squad into the Nexari fortress, she realized that humanity wasn't just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to prove that determination and adaptability could overcome any technological advantage. The hot drops were no longer just an experimental program or a desperate gambit. They had become the embodiment of humanity's response to an overwhelming threat. When the enemy expects you to break, you change the laws of physics instead. Admiral Wong stood before the holographic display in Earth Command's war room, watching as the largest Nexari fleet yet recorded emerged from Fold space near Saturn. Hundreds of crystalline warships arranged themselves in perfect geometric formations, their weapons already powering up. "They're adapting again," Commander Chen observed, her hologram flickering beside him. "Look at those new shield configurations. They're specifically designed to counter hot drop insertion tactics." Wong nodded grimly. The Nexari were nothing if not quick learners. After the devastating loss of their Mars fortress, they had completely redesigned their defensive systems. But that wasn't what worried him most. "They're not just here to fight," he said, pointing to the massive structure at the center of the Nexari fleet. "That's a world killer. Same type they used to shatter the Centaurian civilization." Chen's hologram stiffened. "Earth's defense grid won't stand a chance against that thing. Even with the upgrades. Conventional forces are no longer an option," Wong agreed. "How many hot drop operators do we have combat ready?" 317. Dr. Rossi has the Mark II suits almost finished, but deploy them all, Wong ordered. Every single operator. This is what we've been preparing for. Chen's eyes widened. "Sir, with respect, that's our entire hot drop force. If we lose them, if we don't stop that world killer, there won't be anything left to defend." Wong's voice was steel. "This is the moment, Commander. Everything we've built, everything we've sacrificed, it all comes down to this." The next 12 hours were a blur of preparation. Wong watched as humanity's elite warriors donned their powered armor one last time. The Mark II suits were marvels of engineering, incorporating everything Dr. Rossi and her team had learned from previous generations. But would they be enough? Captain Maya Patel's voice crackled through the command channel. "All hot drop units in position, Admiral. We're ready." Wong took a deep breath. 317 operators against the largest alien fleet ever assembled. The odds were beyond impossible. But then, hot drops have been redefining impossible since their inception. "You all know what's at stake," he addressed the operators. "That world killer reaches Earth. It's game over. Not just for us, but for every human colony, every outpost, every ship still flying our flag. You are humanity's last line of defense." He paused, looking at the tactical display where hundreds of drop pods waited in carefully calculated orbit. "The Nexeri think they know what we're capable of. They think they've seen everything we can throw at them. Show them how wrong they are." The battle that followed would be forever remembered as the breaking point, the moment when humanity proved that determination could overcome any odds. The hot drops struck from multiple vectors, using Saturn's rings as cover. The Mark III suit's enhanced gravity drives let them manipulate debris from the rings themselves, turning ice and rock into projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds. Maya's voice cut through the chaos of battle. "They're adapting to our approach vectors, switching to pattern omega." Wam watched in awe as the hot drop operators executed maneuvers that defied physics itself. The Mark III suits could briefly generate localized singularities, using them to slingshot operators at velocities that turned them into human missiles. The Nexeri fleet's perfect formations began to break. Their crystalline weapons, designed to track normal space combat, couldn't handle targets that seemed to ignore the laws of motion altogether. Every time they adapted to one tactic, the hot drops would unveil another impossible maneuver. But the aliens were far from helpless. Wang's tactical display blazed with red icons as operators fell, their suits overwhelmed by concentrated fire or caught in the crystalline ship's gravitational weapons. "We're losing too many," Chen shouted. "The world killer is still operational." Then Maya's voice again, strained but determined. "Echo Squad, form on me. We're going for the core." Wang watched as 20 hot drop operators broke from the main battle, diving toward the massive world killer. Their suits' energy signatures were astronomical. They were pushing the Mark IIIs far beyond their designed limits. The neural load at those power levels. Dr. Rossi's voice was horrified. Their minds can't take that kind of strain. But Maya and her squad pushed on, their consciousness linked through the neural interface, moving with impossible synchronization. They hit the world killer's shields like a shaped charge, focusing their combined gravitational manipulation into a single point. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality itself seemed to tear as the combined power of 20 Mark II suits created a momentary rupture in spacetime. The world killer's shields, designed to withstand any conventional attack, couldn't handle the localized breakdown of physics itself. 5 years after the Battle of Saturn, Dr. Elena Rossi stood in the newly constructed Hall of Remembrance, staring up at the towering memorial. The crystalline structure, built from salvaged pieces of Nexeri ships, contained the names of every hot drop operator who had given their life defending humanity. Captain Maya Patel's name gleamed near the top, along with the rest of Echo Squad. "Their sacrifice changed everything," Commander Chen said softly, joining Elena at the memorial. The commander had aged visibly since the breaking point, but her eyes were as sharp as ever, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. Elena nodded, remembering the aftermath of that desperate battle. The destruction of their world killer had shattered more than just the Nexeri fleet. It had shattered their belief in their own technological superiority. When the surviving hot drop operators pushed their advantage, using their Mark II suits to tear apart the alien formation, the mighty Nexeri Armada had finally broken. The latest intelligence reports are fascinating. Chen continued, activating a holographic display. Every major spacefaring species is trying to replicate hot drop technology. None of them have succeeded. "They're approaching it wrong," Elena replied, a hint of pride in her voice. "They think it's just about the technology. The gravity drives, the neural interfaces, the advanced materials. They don't understand that hot drops work because of who we are as a species. Around them, the memorial hall was filling with visitors. Elena watched as a group of children pressed their faces against the protective fields, staring in awe at the preserved Mark III suit on display. Its surface still bore the scars from the breaking point, a testament to humanity's finest hour. "I heard the Nexari ambassador actually requested a meeting with you," Chen said, raising an eyebrow. Elena smiled. "They wanted to understand how we developed the technology so quickly. I told them the truth, that we succeeded because we had no choice but to succeed. That human innovation is driven by necessity and fueled by determination. And now every potential adversary thinks twice before challenging Earth," Chen mused. "The species that created hot drops, who turned orbital insertion into an art form, who taught the galaxy that sometimes the best way to win isn't to match your enemy's strength, but to change the nature of warfare itself." A soft chime interrupted them. Elena checked her neural implant. The latest generation of hot drop candidates was ready for their initial briefing. As humanity expanded further into the stars, the program had evolved. Hot drops were no longer just warriors. They were explorers, peacekeepers, and living symbols of human potential. "The Mark V suits are ready for testing," Elena said, bringing up the schematics. The new design made the original hot drop armor look primitive in comparison. "We've incorporated everything we learned from the war, plus some innovations I think even the Nexari will appreciate." "Oh," Chen's interest was piqued. "The neural interface doesn't just link operator to machine anymore. It can interface with any technology, even Nexari crystals. The next generation of hot drops will be able to integrate alien tech on the fly, adapting it to their needs in real time." Chen whistled softly. "You're not just building better warriors. You're creating technological diplomats." "Exactly. The galaxy is changing, Commander. The age of pure military might is ending. But humanity's greatest strength was never our weapons. It was our ability to adapt, to take the impossible and make it routine." They watched as a training drop began, new recruits launching themselves from low orbit in training suits. Each operator was a testament to human evolution, their minds and bodies enhanced by technology, born from humanity's darkest hour. "The Nexari taught us something valuable," Elena reflected. "They showed us that no matter how advanced your technology, no matter how perfect your tactics, there's always room for innovation. They taught us that sometimes the best response to superior force isn't to match it, but to rewrite the rules of engagement entirely," Chen finished. "That's what hot drops really are. Proof that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology or our determination alone, but our ability to combine them in ways no one else imagined possible." Above them, the training drops continued, each operator carrying forward the legacy of those first brave volunteers who had changed the face of warfare forever. The memorial's crystalline surface caught the light, sending rainbow refractions dancing across the hall, a reminder that from the crucible of conflict, humanity had forged not just a new way of fighting, but a new way of thinking about what was possible. The hot drops had become more than just an elite fighting force. They were humanity's message to the galaxy, that in the face of impossible odds, humans didn't just survive. They revolutionized. They adapted. They evolved. And they would continue to do so, one impossible leap at a time.